Hey folks, Sylvia's here. I'm on FDR. We are here to fight some rotworms and also talk some sense of politics here. So what I want to talk about today is, and in the light of the Orlando shooting, I figure now's a good enough time to do it. No, I'm not talking about gun control, and no, I'm not talking about like a bettering vetting process for or banning all Muslims or something like Donald Trump wants. No, I'm not talking about those things. Instead, I want to talk about the biggest non-issue I think I've ever seen in politics. That's such just a complete and utter waste of time that anybody's talking about it, but I'm going to talk about it. So, Obama won't call it Islamic terrorism, and this drives Republicans crazy. And I'm not exactly sure why. So, this might be a uniquely American thing. I don't know if anybody who's watching in other countries even like picks up on this thing or not. But here's the gist of it. Obama's White House and like Secretary of State and basically all of his people, they don't want to refer to it as Islamic terrorism. They want to refer to it as just plain terrorism. Because in their minds, referring to them as Islamic terrorists or Islamic fundamentalist terrorists or something along those lines legitimizes them as religious authorities. The idea is that if you call them a like agent of Islam, that legitimizes their claim to being an agent, the true agents essentially of Islam, and that other Muslims who would look at them skeptically would be like, oh well, they're the legitimate teachers of Islam. That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me in the first place. I mean, they already think they're the legitimate ruler or legitimate voice of Islam, if you will. They think they're the true Muslims, and that, you know, true Muslims and true Islam should be waging jihad against the West. So I don't see how, especially from us, as like I could see a neutral party legitimizing them. But as us, their like perceived ultimate enemy, calling them Islamic fundamentalist terrorist or whatever, isn't going to like legitimize them in any sense. I doubt it would even be like a minor propaganda victory for them. But hey, you never know. The other concern though is that they want to draw a distinction. That we're only fighting the terrorists, that we don't have a problem with other forms of Islam. Moderate Islam, and moderate Muslims, and really I mean, even if they want to live under, like, strict, like, repressive Sharia law, that's perfectly fine as long as they're not going to blow themselves up at us. And that is the other thing we want to say, is we don't want to like insinuate that we are at war with all of Islam, that it is a West versus the Islam conflict. We want it to be known that we're only having an issue with these people that attack us. Which I feel like is a perfectly fine distinction to be making. Even if it's a like minor and still, again, largely irrelevant distinction, because I feel like anybody who's willing to blow themselves up to attack America is kind of already set in that mindset, and even if they're not right today willing to blow themselves up, it's only like a matter of time until they kind of work up the nerve. Maybe they do require something to like set them off. I mean, like, not in the sense of I've ever wanted to become a terrorist, but like I have been irritated at people who have stood in front of me and thought to myself, like, you know, I really want to just say something to this person, but I'm not willing to like go that extra mile to just like yell at a person or say something rude to a person. But if they would keep being rude to me, that would be that like little extra push that I need to be like, yep, all right, I'm snapping out at this person. So, you know, like, maybe there's a would-be terrorist who's not quite at the point where he's willing to go blow himself up for his cause, and he's just waiting for something, you know, another like drone strike killing a civilian or something, or he's waiting for something along those lines to be like, all right, you know what, we're doing it, blowing myself up, bam. I don't feel like referring to it as we're at war with radical Islam would be that thing that sets that dude off, but you never know. Maybe it would. So I mean, that's kind of the thought process for why the Democrats, at least the Obama administration, does not want to refer to it as like a war on radical Islam or anything of the sort. This what should take me, yep, back to the surface. So, like, all right, that's all fine and dandy, I suppose. On the other hand, we have the Republicans who are like, it shows weakness if we don't call them what they are. Which strikes me as also strange because, like, I don't know. So basically, though, that's the stance that Trump and like Ted Cruz, following the Orlando attacks, have both been kind of saying, where it's like, you know, we have to call this what it is. We have to say it's Islamic terrorism. We're at war with Islamic terrorism, not just terrorism. We're at war with specifically Islamic terrorism. That's their argument. All right, so Republicans call it Obama for being too weak on the topic. Obama says that's stupid. We're trying to carefully prevent ourselves from, like, offending other ones. Republicans then say, like, Republicans then say it's like, oh, it's being politically correct. We can't call it what it is because it's not being politically correct. All right, so here's the thing. I like to think of myself as, like, pragmatic, okay? If something helps me get what I want, as long as the cost is okay, I would do it. So, like, you know, if there was a monster in Tibia that I don't enjoy hunting, but it would help me level up faster, as long as I didn't dislike hunting it so much that level up faster would be, you know, worse, or if it didn't cost me tons of, like, resources to hunt effectively, I would go hunt that monster. Because, you know, I want to level up faster. Here's the thing with this issue. If we call them Islamic terrorists, Islamic extremists, Islamic fundamentalists, whatever, how is that going to help us defeat them or protect Americans? Like, when we say, oh yeah, we're having all these problems with, like, Islamic terrorists, is that going to make our soldiers fight harder? Is that going to make, like, our bombs more explosive or more accurate? Are we going to, is, like, our intelligence efforts going to track down terrorists more effectively? Are we going to somehow able to avoid additional collateral damage when we do bomb these people in, like, the civilian areas that they operate out of? Is it going to do any of those things? No, it's not. It's not going to do any of those things. So really, why does it matter? It's not going to help us fight. It's not going to make them worse at fighting. Like, they're not going to be like, oh man, the jig's up. They found out that we're Islamic terrorists. Time to surrender. Now that they're finally calling us what we really are, we know we have no hope of winning. I guess we'll have to just be stupid and shoot ourselves. Or just run around screaming. Like, that's not going to happen. They're going to continue doing exactly the same thing that they've been doing. We're going to continue doing the exact same thing we've been doing. There's going to be no difference. Really, there's not. Like, I mean, really, honestly, stop and think about that for a second. No matter what we call them, if we call them banana clowns, it's still not going to make it easier for us to fight them. Like, the average person is still going to be afraid of them. The average person that becomes a terrorist is still going to become a terrorist. We're going to fight them just as effectively or ineffectively, however you want to claim that one, as we do currently. There's going to be no difference to this whole war, no matter what we name them. So why does it matter what we name them? On the other side of things, Obama and company being like, well, we can't call them that because it'll legitimize them. That's largely, I think, irrelevant. I mean, it's true in the sense that, yeah, it's technically true. But that's also true in the sense that, like, you know, if the sales tax was increased by 0.0001% in my state, it would cost me more money. Technically, it's true, but it would probably only cost me an additional, like, 1 cent every year. Does it really matter? Sure, okay, we're going to legitimize them in some minor way, but, like, does it really matter? Not really. Are some Muslims that aren't currently terrorists going to, like, be misunderstand that statement that we're at war with Islamic terrorism and get upset? Possibly. Is maybe one of them going to become a terrorist? Possibly. I mean, it would suck if it's another terrorist that does, like, a shooting in Orlando or something like that, but it's most likely not going to. I mean, it's like, one terrorist may show up because we call him that, and he's probably going to get caught or do something stupid. I mean, yeah, like, there's always a risk to things, but... So, I mean, Why do the Republicans keep hammering on that topic? Why does Obama refuse to call it that topic? Well, the answer is, in fact, in simple American politics. Hillary Clinton recently made a statement, and let me see if I can find that real quick. Hold on, I'm actually going to pause once I kill these two so I can find her statement. Kill this guy. Alright, let me pause real quick. Okay, so Hillary Clinton said this. Radical jihadist, radical Islam, I think they mean the same thing. I'm happy to say either, but that's not the point. All this talk about, I'm not even going to pronounce that word correctly, but demagoguery, and rhetoric is not going to solve the problem. I'm not going to demonize and demagogue and declare war on an entire religion. That's just plain dangerous, and it plays into ISIS's hands. So basically what she's saying there is that saying we're at war, now, I mean, like, nobody's actually saying that we should say we're at war with all of Islam. And that would definitely play into ISIS's hands. That would be a propaganda victory for them. Saying that, like, we can't coexist with Islam or something like that would definitely be an issue. And that would cause more people to support them and more people to actually become terrorists. But nobody's actually suggesting we do that. Rotworms kind of hit hard. Okay, so, but she said that, which in essence is kind of saying, too, that, like, yeah, it doesn't matter what we call them. It really doesn't matter, which is kind of my stance. Now, the thing with that is, though, immediately after she did that, and I'm going to have to look up another quote once I kill these guys. Immediately after she said that, though, Donald Trump tweets and basically yells, "I told you so," and rubs her face in that. And I will get his quote in a second, too, although I don't know how effectively I can get his quote, because I think his was in tweet format, because he tweets a lot. He's a tweeter, which doesn't sound, or sounds insulting, but it's really not, but he's a tweeter. Let me pause again. All right. So Donald Trump said this. I have been, well, let me just say it in the local chat, might as well. I have been hitting Obama and crooked Hillary, that's because that's what he calls her, hard on not using the term radical Islam terror. Hillary just broke and said she would now use. Okay, so that's why they don't change their mind. They're going to stick to this, like, largely irrelevant philosophy of being like, well, we can't legitimize them, because if they ever said anything, Republicans like Donald Trump and I'm sure Ted Cruz and probably like Mitch McConnell and probably Paul Ryan and I'm sure others would jump all over them and be like, finally, these losers agree with us. This is how pathetic they are, just like Donald Trump just did. I mean, seriously. Like, probably hours after she said that, he was all up about it, like, mocking her to his followers, being like, she finally sees the light of Trump. She should have listened to me from the beginning. So that's why they're never going to change their stance. They're going to hold on to that forever because, yeah, it will be, as in internal American, like, domestic politics, it would be a huge failing on their part to say that, because it would allow the Republicans, in the form of Donald Trump and everybody else, to just smash them down with it. It is absolutely what they would do. And that's why they'll never change their mind. It's got nothing to do with whether or not they think that's the case. They've kind of like drawn their line in the sand, and now they can't go back on it, because if they do, the Republicans will make them hate their lives. Alright, so that's why they won't change. Why do the Republicans care, and why do the Republicans want to hit on them on this one? Because that's also purely politics. The Republicans also know that it doesn't matter. I mean, these are people that are, you know, like, important people with educations and stuff like that, and are basically, their job is to convince the public, the largely uninformed masses, of things like this, okay? Like, that's, you know, Ted Cruz might have a law degree from Princeton, I think it is, or something like that, and he might know a lot about law, but Ted Cruz's job isn't really to make laws, it's to get himself reelected, and it's to, you know, like, convince the electorate that he's the best person to do whatever it is they want. So basically, his job is to listen to and convince and coerce a bunch of uninformed people of things, which, to be fair, is also what every elected official does. because the average human being can't keep themselves informed of every single topic that's happening in the world and in like domestic politics. It's just not happening. So we're all going to be uninformed on certain topics, and on topics that are immensely complex, we're going to be uninformed, which is just the way it is. You know, we all have our normal jobs, we have our normal families, we have our normal things. We can't spend all of our time being like, well, I'm researching domestic policy and like railroad maintenance. Like, that's not how that works. I mean, even like the actual experts on things like this are only experts on one field. They can't be like, oh, I'm an expert on like military matters pertaining to the Middle East, and also I'm fully informed about the like medical industry. Like, that just doesn't happen. Oop, hey, I'm out of mana. Whoop, I apparently don't have pots hotkeyed. So yeah, the point is the politicians know like how to rile up their people and how to, you know, get their people to do whatever they want. They know that this is a topic that they can keep hitting the Democrats on, and it'll make them look bad. And that's the only reason they're doing it. They don't do it because they actually think it's going to do anything. They're just doing it because it's a weak spot and they know they can poke it. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to keep poking it and poking it and poking it. And, like, that's just the way politics are, so, like, I don't know. I mean, I still... A large amount of what happens in politics is what I would say is, like, scummy, and that is definitely scummy. But it's also... It's also an entirely reasonable play in the playbook. You know, they've got a topic that doesn't really matter. Sure, it doesn't matter, but it's a topic. They can embarrass the Democrats with it. And they can basically embarrass the Democrats with it no matter what happens. If the Democrats agree with them, they're embarrassed. If the Democrats don't agree with them, they can keep hammering on them and whatnot. But this is why this is such a non-issue, because it doesn't mean anything. It's just a political game. Some of the other political games that they play are actually about like actual topics. Most people would say like the whole like investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails, or the Benghazi hearings, or even the Planned Parenthood like baby lives committee thing that the Republicans are running. Those are all actually about things. Now, no matter where you fall on that like this is important to me or not important to me scale, they are all about things. Like, if you're for abortion, then the panel to get rid of abortion is an issue for you. And if you're, you know, pro-Hillary, then the Benghazi thing and the email thing are, like, actual concerns, because they could hurt your candidate. If you're against them, then those are also, you know, things, because the abortion panel could get rid of abortion, and, you know, the Benghazi thing and the email thing could, you know, hurt Hillary and get her out of the running. So those are all things that, like, actually have relevance, even if they are, and they are, largely just political games. But like I said, they have importance. Whereas this thing with, like, what are we going to call the terrorist, there's no importance to it. It doesn't matter. And like I said earlier, it's not calling them terrorists isn't going to make them harder to fight. Calling them Islamic terrorists isn't going to make them easier to fight. This is all just like a moot point. It's all just a political game. Which is a shame, because it's getting a lot of attention, and the issue I have with these types of things is, like, yeah, like I said, it's all, like, fair in politics and whatever. You say what you can to hurt the other guy. You know, it is like a battle between Republicans and Democrats, and I understand that. And when you get a weak spot, no matter how kind of potentially scummy it is, you take it. The issue I have with this, though, is it wastes time where we could be actually talking about a real topic involving this thing. And instead we're talking about this stupid crap. Instead of talking about, you know, like, how can we actually prevent additional attacks in a actual meaningful way? How can we win the war on terrorism in an actual meaningful way? We're wasting our time talking about, well, what are we going to call it? Donald Trump said something, at least I think it was Donald Trump, it might have been Ted Cruz. They said something about, like, if your doctor, says you have a disease and he says it's cancer, well, you need to know what kind of cancer. Yeah, I mean, kind of, you need to know what kind of cancer, but if it's terminal cancer, you don't actually need to know what kind of cancer it is. Like, if your doctor's like, yeah, you have cancer, it's incurable, and you've got, like, 6 months to live, does it really matter what type of cancer it is? I mean, like, are you going to feel less terrible about the fact that you've got 6 months left to live if you've got, like, brain cancer versus mouth cancer versus, like, eye cancer? I don't even know if eye cancer is a thing, by the way. I assume it is, but I don't know. Like, it's not really going to make you feel better. You've still got cancer, and you're still dying. And when we talk about, like, curing cancer, we want to talk about curing all types of cancer, not just half of them. Like, people aren't going to be happy if they're like, oh yeah, we cured, like, a third of all types of cancer. Good enough. Good enough. That's fine. No, like, we want to cure all of them. So, like, it doesn't really matter, is the point I'm trying to make. But like I said, instead of actually, like, trying to cure cancer, we're arguing about what are we going to call this type of cancer. And I think that's pointless. Just absolutely pointless. In, like, the worst kind of way. And I'm not targeting these guys well. Also, I don't know how to get out of here. So it's just, to me, it just seems like a very, very unfortunate approach to be having, to be focusing on just scoring the political victory and hurting your opponent at the, in turn, like, not actually doing anything about the very real, like, threatening topic that we have. Like, something actually needs to be done about this problem. I don't think just, like, drone strikes and supporting questionable allies in the Middle East are really going to do it. Like, we got to do something real to solve this problem. Or we need to learn the fact that we're just going to live with it, which is basically what Israel did. Israel has just kind of, like, accepted the fact that terrorism is going to forever be a part of their lives, and, like, does all of their stuff in the assumption that terrorism will always be a part of their lives. I mean, maybe that's an option we have to look at. Like, maybe we have to consider that just Islam is never, is always going to have a sect in it that just opposes us, and we got to do whatever we want about it. I don't know what to say. But the other problem I think that this whole statement has, that was the wrong spell, is that it leads to, we see it with a lot of things. Like, we see politicians say things, and then people amplify it. Social media makes this a lot worse. A lot worse. But if you, like, read the comments on any kind of, like, news article about this topic, you'll see people, like, angrily saying that, like, the left they'll say things like this: the left calls Islam a religion of peace. We should ban them all from the country. And that's actually the problem. See, is, like, all the rhetoric from, Donald Trump and company actually leads people to thinking like that. Islam isn't a religion of hatred or warfare. It's a religion like all others, and it has different sects in it. Some of them good, some of them are bad. Right now, a large section of Islam isn't in the greatest position for us. And, like, yeah, that's definitely true. I don't even know what percentage of, like, Islam is fundamentalist Islam that opposes us. But right now, a section that is larger than we're comfortable with dislikes us. Hey, it happens. It's not like Christianity didn't have its terrible moments in the past, too. I mean, like, man, those crusades that they launched 4 separate times. Woohoo! That wasn't a religion of peace. Spanish Inquisition, that wasn't a religion of peace. Salem witch trials, that wasn't a religion of peace. I mean, like, Christianity's had its issues, too. I mean, sure, okay, we grew out of them. It's a shame that, like, Islam hasn't yet, or maybe Islam's going through a cycle different than Christianity did, or something like that. I don't know what to say. But not all of Islam is at war with America. I mean, there's plenty of Muslims in America that are, like, proud American citizens and whatnot. I mean, yeah, sure, some of them, but not all of them. Not enough that we should consider Trump's ban of all Muslims from entering the country. Not in, not so that we should have a registry of all Muslims or something like that either. Besides the fact that those things are all like completely opposite to what we do in America, but those things are also unnecessary and like just immoral in and of themselves. But this kind of rhetoric that we get from like Donald Trump and Ted Cruz and other Republicans is actually causing a problem because it gets the average person to think like that. It's the average person now that, you know, like yells at Muslim women inside of frozen yogurt stores because they're wearing their little hijab, I think it's called. Because they hear this rhetoric and they're like, oh yeah, we need to say this. And all this, you know, other stuff. Like, that's the problem, is that it gets into the normal average citizens of America, and then the normal average citizens of America, in their infinite lack of wisdom, make it so much worse. So anyway, folks, that's it. I just wanted to point out that this whole thing is just a complete non-issue. It is just a political game. It's got no relevance or no importance. It is just solely a political game. A really good one from the Republican perspective. Don't get me wrong. I mean, like I said, it's scummy, but it's a masterful attack line. If they hold their ground and defend, they look like, you know, they're able to keep attacking on that topic. If they don't hold their ground and they don't defend, like Hillary Clinton sort of did, then they end up looking like they cave. So it's like a great attack method, but it is a non-issue, and it's completely pointless, and it's a waste of everybody's time. So that's that. Alright, folks, that's it for me. Like, favorite, comment, subscribe. Check me out on Patreon, Twitter, and Facebook. I'll see you, folks.